Hello everyone, this is Carl Shiflett from Infragistics, and in this short video I'd like to give you an introduction to the control configurators for Xamarin.Forms controls. So the control configurators are a VSIX or a Visual Studio extension. So let's go up here to our tools, extensions and updates, and let's just have a look at the Xamarin.Forms control configurator right here. And you can see its version, and I've got it set for automatic updates. So that's great. All right, so how do we use the configurators? Well, first thing you have to do is you have to have something to configure, right? So why don't we go with our radial gauge? So I'm going to use my toolbox, and I actually like just double clicking, and it goes in and it puts the control in for me. It adds my XML and S, and oops, forgot to put my focus on there again, and now I've just formatted my document. Now, what I want you to notice is when I click on this, when I click on the radial gauge, notice that you got a little light bulb over here. I'll click away, click here, and you get a light bulb. So the light bulb is what Visual Studio calls the quick actions, right? So you can come over here, you can click. Now watch, you have a little tooltip that says Control dot. That's going to be your friend. So essentially, you can use your mouse to open up your configurators. But and just by clicking. But I find it's just easier just to click it, press Control dot, and press Enter, and then the configurator just flies open, and you're ready to go. All right, so let me give you Configurator Wow 101, which is we've opened up a radial gauge, and we're gonna just pick a radial gauge like this one. That looks nice. Let's save and apply, or apply and close. Control K, Control D, and what I want you to see is all this really complicated XAML that the configurator saved you for having to write. I mean, if you just think about it, just look at those needle properties. These controls are incredibly rich. They're very well written, architected, perform incredibly well, but they have very rich APIs, as you're about to see. I'll show you right over here with the needle. So you can see all the properties for the needle, but it takes this many properties in order to get the kind of effects that you can get with, see all these needles. I mean, they're just crazy, the kind of stuff you can do with a needle. And then you'll even see down here where we've got one of these. We made the needle look like this, and that's a single needle. So we made a compass out of it, right? So it's pretty cool, like all this really rich stuff, but it requires something, right? It requires something to make it work, and that something is all the XAML. So what I want to do is I want to just fire this up. So Control K, Control D. So I'm launching my app in the emulator, and I'm going to put it on pause while we launch it first. Okay, so we're back. So here's my radio gauge in all its splendor, and I'm going to try to go. See, we're really diminished. That's why it's not exactly clear because this thing's all smashed down. But let me open the configurator kind of side by side and try to just give you an overview of what's happening. So you could see here, it's pretty close, right? So this here is a WPF control. This is a Xamarin.Forms control, and we were able to get these to marry up and look pretty close, right? So it's kind of an amazing thing. These configures really are. So that's like a configurators 101. But let me give you the introduction, which is what I want to do, and just sort of talk about the things that are common to all configurators. So configurators all have an apply and close button, and then back here in the backstage you can apply and close, or you can just hit cancel. And then some configurators, which would be the gauges, they have these quick sets where you can pick something that's been pre-configured. Now, obviously, we couldn't create quick sets for every scenario in the entire world, but what we did is we created a wide variance of quick sets. These are all very easy to modify and change for you for what you're doing, but they're also ways to teach what's capable. The configurators were used to write every single one of these, and they all have very distinct scenarios. So I encourage you to actually look at them, run them, and then you can come over here in the property window, and you can see all the things that had to have been changed in order to get that. All right, initially you're going to be overwhelmed. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right up. Initially, you're going to be overwhelmed because there's so many properties, so many different things. But after you start using this for a little while, you really become an expert, and then it becomes fun to see what you can do with the configurators. All right, so some configurators have min and max values, and you could set these or change them as required. Some have design time data where you can change this. So like here, let's set this to like 48. So it's type 48, and you can see that it changed immediately, and that's kind of cool. Some controls have ranges. That see these color bands right here? Those are the ranges. So it's good to know the APIs of the controls, right? And that's why we have these little buttons here where you can click and you can actually go to the radio gauge help topic, and you can learn all about it, right? Okay, so now number of this part here is all about the ranges. So here we've disabled the number of ranges because, well, you already got number of ranges, right? And we'll talk, each control will get its own video. I'll go into great detail about each one of them. Now, one of the things you're going to find in the configurators is that we have some. This is the ribbon gallery. Some of them we allow you to pick how to control the shape of something. So for instance, this is a range, and you can actually come over here and you can pick the shape of the range that you want. Then there's brushes and outlines. So I'll cover that more. And then here's all the different scales that we laid out, but you can make your own, of course. So you can have like speedometer 1. Here's another speedometer. There's another one. I mean, it's just endless, the kind of things you can do with these controls. Of course, you can pick all your needles. We got all different kinds of needles. You can enable or disable needle dragging. So if you enable it, right, then you can drag the needle at runtime or design time. Now, every one of these gallery items, it sets one or more properties. So if we look right here, this transition, so right here, needle. So we get onto the needle and we see is needle dragging enabled, and that's it right there. And so if I disable it, you can see the property goes away. But the reason we put it up here was to make it a little bit more obvious how to get the needle so you can drag it, right? And transparency is covered in its own video. And here we can enable animation. So there's a lot of controls that have this capability. So you can just click this and it enables animation. So now watch when I go from 48 to 0. See how it just animated real slow like that? Or I can go back to 40 instead of, and if I turn it off, it'll just pop. See? So animation is really cool, and it works at runtime. The entire control is animatable. You can actually animate color changes. It's unbelievable what these controls can do. All right, so now in the center, we have sort of our design area. And I don't like to use the word design, but our configure area where our host control is. This little box around here, this is called the bounding box. And essentially what it does is it shows the developer the size of the control related as it relates to its bounding area. So if you look over here, see, so this is the bounding area, and you can see that this control here, it takes up proportionally about the same amount of space. So if I was to add, background color or do something else, you could see how it works. So the purpose of that, though, is right here. This gauge, I happen to know it has a radius multiplier, so I can go something like this. So within the bounding box, I can make it bigger, and it would do the same thing when it rendered at runtime on the device. All right, so the other pieces that we have is we have a configurator that has a background color property. You can actually come over here and change the background color of the configurator to match the color that your designer says that we're going to render the control on. We have a whole lesson on that. Now, over here, I'm going to have a whole lesson on this. So this container is grid right now. And you can see that our container is a grid. Well, sometimes they're a stack panel, and stack panels and grids have different layout, initial layout. And so I'll show you, we'll have a whole class in teaching on that. And then, of course, in our property grid, it's pretty much your standard property grid. And I've tried to do things. So we have colors, we got brush editors, and the things that I've tried to do with these sliders is to help the new person begin to understand and gently move things. So here's an example, end needle extent. So I can take this and see how I moved it, and then it has that effect on it. And then we also got this thing, these little buttons for dialing it in like that. So this is the purpose of this is for these all these sliders is to make it easier to change values and then visually watch them, which is the power of the control configurator, right? So you could sort by category, you can do an alpha sort, you can search, and then we also have this other feature where we click this brush and it shows all the brushes or colors that are part of the selected object here. Okay, speaking of selected objects, we have ranges, right? So that's all these ranges here. Now watch what happens when I click on one. So the first thing that happened was over here, the selected object became the range. And I'm gonna click another one, and you'll just watch the end values, so you can see how it changed on the ones that I did over there, right? Now, if you want to get back to this control where you can just click on it, or you can click this little button, select XAM radial gauge, and it goes back. Or if it's selected, you can control click it and it'll unselect it. Now, another feature is ranges allow you to multi-select. So then you could set properties at once, brush, outline, or stroke things. You could set these all at once um, depending on your requirements, right? All right, so that's a quick introduction to the control configurators. I gave you the wow factor within just, literally, seconds. You've got a control that's completely configured, and you didn't have to know the APIs, and everything just works out for you, right? All right. I hope you're excited about the configurators. We're incredibly excited here at Infragistics. We've worked very hard on them, and our passion is your productivity. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.